Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Prajachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajachana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Phala Nisimha Jaya Nisimha Dev Jaya Phala Nisimha Jaya Nisimha Dev Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's all good. Thank you. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so today we are reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 13. And just going to read the Sanskrit, the translation and the purport. Om iti ekaksharam brahma vyaharan mam anusmaran ya prayati tyajandeham sayati paramam gatim. Translation. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It is clearly stated here that Om, Brahman and Lord Krishna are not different. The impersonal sound of Krishna is Om, but the sound Hare Krishna contains Om. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is clearly recommended for this age. So if one quits his body at the end of life chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, he certainly reaches one of the spiritual planets, according to the mode of his practice. The devotees of Krishna enter the Krishna planet, Goloka Vrindavan. For the personalists, there are also innumerable other planets known as Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, whereas the impersonalists remain in the Brahmajyoti. Omakyanti mirandasya kyananjana shalakaya shakshu unmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Okay, good evening. So today I was thinking to speak something about the holy name. So there are many different aspects in this purport. You know, Srila Prabhupada talks about the syllable Om, he talks about Brahman, he talks about the different planets and the different destinations that we can reach according to our state of consciousness. And he speaks about the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And what is most interesting here is the sentence, he certainly reaches one of the spiritual planets according to the mode of his practice. So what is indicated here is that the state of consciousness that we have when we leave our body is very much going to determine where we're going to go in the end of this life. So whether it's the consciousness of devotion that we carry, so if we have, you know, devotion for the deities of the Vaikuntha planets, we might go there. If we have the devotion for Radha and Krishna, for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we reach their planets. And when we carry a material consciousness, whether it's Sattva Gun, Raja Gun, or Tamagun, we'll get back to the material dimension. And I really wanted to focus on the aspect of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and how it's connected to the emotional state we carry when we are chanting. And this morning, I was seeing, not actually this morning, this afternoon, I was hearing a really amazing class by His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, where he was speaking about emotions and the holy name. How emotions keep us trapped in our material identity, and how sattvic emotions can elevate us into higher states of consciousness and can allow us to access spiritual emotions. And this is a very, very powerful point. So during the lecture, I was taking a lot of notes. I'm just trying to break down the essence of what he said. So before we start, I just want to do a little exercise. It will take 5 seconds, 10 seconds. I just want you to close your eyes and remember the holy name and Lord Krishna, just for a moment. Just close your eyes and remember the holy name and Lord Krishna. Okay. Just deeply remember the holy name. Okay. So, according to Vrindavan Das Thakur, and you can open your eyes again, if you didn't cry right now out of ecstasy, it means you don't have any bhakti. So, of course, this is a very, very elevated statement. But the point here is very simple, that, the greatest wealth a devotee can have are spiritual emotions. And for someone who doesn't yet have spiritual emotions, understanding how we are entangled with our material emotions and how we can transform them into sattvic emotions and then spiritual emotions can be very, very powerful. And he was describing this very powerful aspect of where emotions actually come from. And he was describing that most of us assume that the mind is actually in our head. But he was saying how the yogic scripture actually explain how the mind is actually here, in the heart, around the heart, covering with the ahankara, the soul, our spiritual identity. And how the brain is just like, a computer, a machine that the mind is using. And he was giving this very, very interesting example. Because even in science, you have neurons in your brain. You have 86 billion neurons in your brain. And they also discovered something which is called the brain of the heart, which is here. And it is only having 48,000 neurons, around 48,000. There is, in the yogic scripture, is a mention of 72,000 nadis that are here around the heart. And the powerful point here is that those neurons or nadis, 90% of the energy goes and accesses our brain. So although there are only very few neurons here, very few synapses, they access 90% of the 86 billion neurons that we have in our brain. So the point is the heart, even from a scientific point of view, the heart controls the mind, the brain, the processes that go here. And only 10% go back. Now we have a doctor sitting here, so I'm just repeating what I heard in this lecture, so I didn't study medicine. So 10% go back. So the brain has actually very little influence on our emotional state, on our mind. The seating place of our emotion is really the ahankara that covers the soul, that kind of covers our perception of the super soul. Now, this becomes very important because when we chant, if we really want to purify ourselves, if we really want to purify our mind, we really need to concentrate also around the area of the heart. And there are certain things that we can do that expand the heart, and there are certain things that we can do that kind of shrink the energy of the heart and make it heavy and make it closed. Now, to again come back to this process, it's really like those emotions that arise in our heart, they create some reaction in our brain, that creates some hormones, and that creates impact on our physical body and on our activity. So it's emotions that create hormones and that allow us to act. So it's really the emotions that eventually translate into actions. So negative emotions, and most emotions are entangling us. And the main emotions that are described are actually, let me just see, it's Krodha, Baya, and the other one, let me see where I wrote it down. There are so many notes I can't even see anymore. No, it's Moha is that's another one that's mentioned in the 11th canto, but there were two essential emotions that I'm just trying to find in my many notes. Here we go. So it's Raga, Baya, and Krodha. So the essential emotion that keeps us entangled is Raga. So, and that is essentially its attachment. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is this famous verse which speaks about lust. This selfish desire, this attachment. And this is basically, I want and I desire, for my own pleasure. This raga is really what keeps us attached. Now, when it doesn't work out, when we don't get what we want, then there are basically two main ways of how we can react. And one is bhaya, which is fear. We kind of we run away, we don't want to deal with it, like it's too much for us, or it's krodha. It's translated into anger. So these are really the three main emotions that really keep us entangled. It's first the selfish desire that we want to enjoy, we want to take part in this world, we want to enjoy, we want to gain certain things, and when that doesn't work out, then how we react is either by running away from the situation, by rejecting it, or we become angry. So if it's a very strong attachment, then fear will be the reaction. If the attachment is not that strong, it will be anger, the reaction that is coming through. And of course, those emotions again entangle us even further. They will create negative beliefs around us, that I'm useless, hopeless emotions, tamasic emotions. So it starts with raja guna, and it becomes degraded into tamaguna. So these emotions then will make us act in a certain way and entangle us further. And it's those emotions that also will, make us take birth again in our next life. So if we really want to free ourselves from our entanglement in this material world, of course we all know it's about the higher taste. It's about us experiencing spiritual emotions. Now the problem is that most of us are not on a transcendental platform. We're still on a material platform where we sometimes might get, a glimpse, we might get a certain experience, but we don't really fully access spiritual emotions. Therefore, we need to build a bridge. And really, the bridge to those emotions is the emotion of gratitude. And these three emotions can also be further, like you also mentioned it, there are other emotions that you can mention. There is moha, there is lobha, greed, and moha being confusion and illusion. And then there is harsa, jubilation, so we become very excited about something. So this is also very interesting. Sometimes even the emotion of pride, we always often think this is like, yes, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I'm the coolest, I'm the best mridanga player, best pujari, best cook. But it also can be that I am, and now this is very, very, very subtle point, that I am the person where everything goes wrong. For everyone, things always work out wonderful, but for me, I'm always in the worst situations. I always meet, the wrong people. I'm always in the wrong place, and I'm like so fallen. I can never make any advancement. I have this conditioning and come from a bad family. So sometimes what happens in our movement is we take those elevated emotions of the acharyas that, say I'm lower than, a worm in stool. I'm the most fallen, But these emotions are because they experience so much transcendental love. They feel so overwhelmed. They feel so much ecstasy that they just feel like they don't deserve it. And then they express this in genuine humility. But when we imitate this, we have to be careful that it comes from sattva gun and not from pride in the mode of ignorance. that, oh yeah, I'm, for me it's, like everything just goes always wrong. I am special because others can make advancement, others can move forward, but me, I can never, it will never work out for me. It's the same thing, just in another way, because sometimes we think about pride in this, just in the puffed up way, which is obviously also, like, is not any better. But there's also this other emotion where we have to be careful that we we really manifest proper emotions. And how do we know? We know if we have gratitude. So if we say, I'm so fallen, oh my God, I'm the most fallen devotee. One time, like, one devotee told this to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen devotee. And Prabhupada said, you're not the most of anything, like, so when we have gratitude, then, and we say, I'm so fallen. But at the same time, we have gratitude for what is in our life, for what has been given to us, for the services that we have, for the environment which we're in, for the association that we have, for the service that we have. Then it's the proper attitude and the proper consciousness. Because gratitude is one of the very few emotions, the only one I'm aware of, that is a sattvic emotion. And the amazing thing about gratitude is it's something you can actually cultivate. So spiritual emotions, in that sense, you can't really like cultivate them. If you try to cultivate spiritual emotions in an artificial way, this is sahaja. Like when you really push for it artificially, not when you try to feel devotion for the Lord, but when you try to exhibit spiritual emotions and try to, artificially manifest something which is not based on the higher modes of nature, but is based on the mode of ignorance or passion. But when we cultivate gratitude, deep gratitude, and connect it to a spiritual person, a spiritual situation, then that gratitude will actually calm the mind, and it will bring sattva gun in our Jai Palat Nisima Dev Ki, Lakshmi Devi Ki. It will really allow our heart to expand, the energy of our heart to expand. It will break the false ego, because the false ego always wants more, always wants better, or thinks that things are not right or not proper, or something is wrong, something could be better. But when you bring in gratitude, you start to go against, the false ego, and you actually start to come in touch with reality. Because the reality is that Krishna made the perfect arrangement for each and every one of us. And when we chant in this attitude, then the holy name will start to be a more pleasant experience for us. When we start in the mode of ignorance and in the mode of passion, then the holy name can sometimes even feel like, we don't have really any taste, it's such a struggle, it's so difficult. But check your heart, check if you are in a grateful consciousness, if you're grateful to your spiritual master, if you're grateful for Krishna, for the things that you have received. And when we chant in the state of consciousness, we will see that the holy name will manifest more easily. And therefore, the greatest impediment also that can happen to us is when we offend other Vaishnavas. Because when we offend other Vaishnavas, then in one sense we accept moha, we accept illusion. We think that this particular person, is my enemy. This particular person has, a problem, an issue with me, wants to harm me, and because of this person I can't do what I actually want to do. And then we might start to criticize, we might start to fight, we might start to argue. Or devotees that express their love or devotion for Krishna in a way that we don't really understand. Be like, this devotee always does like this and like that. And like we start to criticize and then actually this is moha, this is illusion. We don't see things as they are. An exalted devotee sees that everyone, even people who are not devotees, are engaged in Krishna's service. And another reason why this obstruct us so much in our chanting is because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, one who explains this knowledge, to my devotees is most dear to me. And for most devotees, they often don't need another Bhagavatam class. They don't need that you quote verses to them. Sometimes they might need, maybe in class, but otherwise it means that you're also very respectful. You're very caring. You're very attentive. You're very, very sensitive in your dealings with other devotees. And if you serve other devotees, then Krishna is going to be very, very pleased. He mentions that in the very end of Bhagavad Gita. So it doesn't only mean preaching, but it really means to have a caring and very conscious attitude about other devotees. That even if I don't really understand them, I can't relate to their mood, and I don't know why they did that again, although I told them not to do it like that, we're still aware. Of course, if we are in a position of authority, sometimes we might need to correct, but if we're not in a position of authority, and we can do that by checking back with the authority of the temple, then it's better to, take a humble position and not try to, criticize and put other devotees down, because that is one thing that will really spoil your chanting. And when your chanting is spoiled, then the essence of why we are here as devotees, whatever we do with chanting, worshipping the deities, reading Bhagavatam, distributing books, all of these things are actually meant to bring us to the state where we can really chant with attention and absorption. The holy name is going to reveal everything to us, our form in the spiritual world, who we are, our services. It's going to manifest the great qualities in us. So the offending other Vaishnavas is how we're going to spoil this. And it's going to be a chain reaction. Because when you lose taste for chanting, and taste for chanting means, you have to chant, and it's like, oh my God, it's like, it seems like a burden. When chanting becomes a burden, then you will chant, and, negative thoughts might enter your mind, and they become amplified. And then you become more critical, then you offend other people, then association is going to be taken away from you, then material desires manifest in your heart. Offending Vaishnavas, a direct connection to that is that you find material desires in your heart. If you watch carefully people who criticized others, it's even if you look into Bhagavatam, one way of how it's manifested if they didn't get cursed is that material desires start to develop. So sometimes when devotees leave the association of the Vaishnavas, when they go away, sometimes it's because of this. They offend someone and they think they are right, and they might criticize more and more, but you will see suddenly they can't get access to that Sangha anymore. Suddenly they're removed. Suddenly they cultivate more material desires in their heart. Of course, this should not be an excuse when a devotee leaves our Vaishnava association. We should always be very responsible and understand, are we caring enough? Did we really provide what that devotee needed? But the point is, this is very subtle. Like you don't even realize. When you offend Vaishnavas, especially Vaishnavas who are elevated, you won't even realize, and you're away. And you think you are right. You think you are great. You think you're very spiritual. But in reality, you're gone. So therefore, this is very, very, very important when we chant the holy name. How we deal with other Vaishnavas. And also, the real taste for chanting of the holy name comes through the blessings and prayers of other Vaishnavas. So when you Satchidananda Maharaj mentions this many, many times also in his lectures. So when you, for example, really want to take advantage of the holy name, then of course, when you live in the temple and you are not married and you don't have children, this is the best time of your life to go deep in the holy name. And trust me, there's not going to be any better time, maybe when you're vanaprastha or something, but this is the best time to go deep in the chanting of the holy name. This is the best time to study Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Don't let your mind tell you later, when I've moved on, I'm married. No. That's like when you're so fortunate that you can live in the temple, Like, this is if I think still back about my time as a brahmachari, and I think about those rounds before Mangala Arti, they carried me through my spiritual life. Those moments when I was really, making for a longer time and effort to go deeper in the holy name, because that will give you practical experiences, and those experiences will always carry you through in your spiritual life. If you don't have practical experiences of Krishna consciousness, especially if you don't have some kind of connection to the holy name, it will be very, very difficult to maintain your practice. So therefore, when we're in the temple, this is the best time ever to make an extra effort, to get up early, to really, really try to spend quality time with the holy name, because that experience in the temple, that these samskaras that are created, you will never forget. They will always stay with you. When you move on, when you move out of the temple, when other responsibilities come, you will always think back about those rounds before Mangala Arti. Really. It's very powerful. And also, what is really, really good is when we, sometimes maybe once a year make a vow and chant 64 rounds. Really, one day just for the holy name. When we really enter in the chanting on this day, nothing else. No running around, no other service, just the holy name. So we create really some kind of connection. And another powerful thing to do is really to ask the devotees, especially devotees, who we know, wow, this devotee when he chants is amazing. Devotees, we feel they have taste. When we serve them, when we get their blessings, then we can have really powerful experiences. I remember once that when I was a brahmachari, there was one sannyasi, and he said, when Ekadashi is, you should not sleep, you should stay up all night and just chant the holy name. So we were young, brahmacharis really fired up, so we said, okay, let's do it, And we went on Sankirtan, and then, my friend was really enthusiastic. I was like, oh, I don't know. And then, next day I'll just be, finished, So let's do it. I was like, okay, let's do it. And then, at the manor, it's a huge temple, it's a huge institution, so you can't just stay up all night and chant in the temple room. It's you have to ask many, many people, and they were like, come on, boys, get out, get in your ashram, go somewhere else. And then Shruti Dhamma Prabhu, who unfortunately now passed away, but he at that time said, no, if the boys want to do kirtan and chant, let them do all night. So we got permission. And we, we went in the temple room and we followed that instruction of that devotee. We chanted all night. We did all night kirtan. And that night, that experience, whenever I struggle in my spiritual life, I just think back of that night and that experience, and I'm good. I know, yes, I'm on the right way. Maybe right now, I'm not getting up at 3 o'clock at that time, but these samskaras are saved. They are deep within my consciousness. And then I was also thinking, why did I have such an amazing experience at that night? And then one devotee wrote me from Govardhan Hill, because I wrote to him, oh, I had this nice experience, I feel I have more faith in the holy name now. And he's like, yes, Simon, I was actually praying for you last night. And then I could understand that my effort, nothing. But one devotee gave an instructions that for some reason we followed, and another devotee in the holy Dham was praying for us. And then you have powerful experiences. So it's not like you sit down, now I'm going to really go for it. Of course, that's nice, that's enthusiasm. Krishna is obviously very happy to see that. But when we have blessings from other devotees, when other devotees are praying for us, when the Vaishnavas wishing us well, it doesn't work like that. Oh, Prabhu, can you, please pray for me, please give me your blessings. It's nice, it's still nice, it's nice attitude. But even higher is when the Vaishnava sees you, and naturally they feel, oh, such a nice devotee. Because this is how blessings work. It's a very subtle thing. It's like a Vaishnava just wishes you well. And this is not something you can buy. This can only happen through service. So when we do service to other Vaishnavas, and that can, through caring for them, maybe you make hot milk one night for a devotee, or you are just attentive. When they wish you well, it can move all obstacles away. And when you don't have the blessings of the Vaishnavas, spiritual life becomes very difficult, but because now you depend on your own power. And then it's not much you can do. If you have the blessings of other Vaishnavas, even if you make some mistakes, not offending devotees, other mistakes, there's some fall down, there is something. But if other devotees wish you well, if you have the blessings of the Vaishnava, you will always be protected. So this is another, powerful aspect to the holy name, that element of blessings and prayers. Once we did a japa retreat in Govardhan Eco Village, and this Maharaj, he suggested we chant 192 rounds that day. I didn't do it. I left that day actually in the ashram. But he was doing this japa retreat. And he said, before you do and sit down and chant 24 hours, it's actually the amount of rounds Haridas Thakur did. I wish I would have done it. But he was saying, before that, call the people you feel you have offended or you have not a good feeling about. And he said what usually happens, people start to sit down, and after some time they might start crying. After some time they just have to make a phone call because they realize the mercy is not coming, because they know, this devotee is very unhappy, is very upset. And of course, when we offended a devotee, we need to ask for forgiveness. And if that devotee doesn't forgive, there's one holy place, does anyone know, in Mayapur where you can go when you offended someone to chant? There's a particular place in Mayapur, I just forgot the name. It's said if you go there and chant, then your offenses to Vaishnavas can be forgiven. And the other thing is more chanting. So if you offended another Vaishnava and they don't forgive you, more chanting. And that will help in that attitude. So this is very, very interesting, because you will notice some people in their spiritual life, although they also have obstacles, they have a much more positive experience. They have a much more spiritual experience. And it's often because of these subtle things. Vaishnavas wishing them well, the spiritual master wishing them well. I mean, this is like the greatest thing. If your spiritual master is happy with you, then the holy name is of course also very happy. So we can make our own effort, but when we are in the state of gratitude, of appreciation towards other Vaishnavas, and we really, really start to understand that we are all different, okay? I might have a particular service, I might do things in a particular way, but another devotee will do it in a different way. Why? Because we are people with different varnas, different natures, right? They're kshatriyas, they're shudras, they're brahmanas, they're vaishyas. People will have a slightly different approach and focus in their life, how they do things. A Vaishya, when he's managing a project, you might wonder, why is he so much focused on increasing and scaling and money? And we as devotees, we should just be simple. And yes, we should be simple, but also he's a Vaishya. So what you gonna do with him? You need to engage his nature. Someone, when there's a fight, they're there. They want to protect, they want to do something, and they can't tolerate injustice. If you tell them, just forgive, just be tolerant. Actually, forgiveness, somewhere in Shastra is mentioned, is also a quality of a kshatriya. But at the same time, you need to understand their nature. So when we see devotees do things that we don't understand, best is, we really understand, okay, they have a certain relationship with Krishna, they have a certain way of doing things. I might not understand it, but we don't start to criticize. And criticizing really manifests when there are different stages of criticism, right? There's criticism in your mind, and good news, in Kali Yuga, that doesn't have any reactions, but there's a small print. Because if you meditate on someone and their faults, it's just a question of time, as we just heard. Thinking, feeling, willing, and you speak it out. So, we have to also be very careful what we carry in our mind. So then we might talk to another devotee, this devotee is like this and is like that. And sometimes, we might actually need to express our frustrations to another person. Oh my God, this devotee, I told him yesterday to clean the pots and he just didn't do it, and oh my God. It's okay. Just go to a friend, someone you trust, open your heart, let it out. Okay. We're human beings. What you don't want to do is go to that devotees. Prabhu, you are just nonsense. I told you to do that and you're just not doing it and you're useless. And it's like, unless we're guru, guru can do, okay? Guru can, elevated Vaishnava can do. But otherwise, I would be very careful with this stuff. If we are frustrated, find a good friend and tell them, look, I'm just very frustrated about this situation. Can I just speak to you? And then this other devotee will not be, so happy to hear, but he understands with compassion, and it's okay. But you should be very careful, starting to spread that word and going directly towards a person. I actually don't know why this comes out so much right now, but somehow feel inspired to share this. And the other thing is that this does not mean that we tolerate abusive behavior. When we notice abusive behavior in a temple environment, we need to go to the authority, temple authority. Okay? We don't take matters in our own hand. We go in confidence to the authorities and speak. Very important. So that doesn't mean, when we see bad stuff is happening, oh no, I'm not supposed to offend Vaishnavas. No. If you see something is wrong, in a humble attitude, Prabhu, Mataji, I saw this happen and I'm just very confused about it. Can you help me about it? Much better than, this devotee is a demon, he did this, he did that. Okay, in a humble attitude. And when we carry this consciousness, even if we are, have shortcomings, we will be protected. Because Krishna, he says in Bhagavad Gita, a devotee who explains this knowledge to others, a devotee who's very considerate, very respectful to the devotees who are most dear to Krishna. What is more dear to Krishna than his devotees? So when we have this understanding, then Krishna will always take care of us. So these are the little adjustments that we can make in our spiritual life that can really accelerate our chanting. So let me think. Already time is quite going. Is there anything else I wanted to say about this? And a nice meditation that different devotees have already spoken about is that before you chant, you meditate on your spiritual master. Of course, you can do it during your japa as well. Tamal Krishna Goswami was saying that his chanting of the holy name is his time with Srila Prabhupada. So when he's chanting the holy name, he's thinking of Srila Prabhupada, which is perfectly fine. But what we can meditate, this is also mentioned in the last book Satchinanda Maharaj wrote, how you offer arti to your spiritual master in your mind. Before you chant or during your chanting, it's recommended before. And this can really, it can really give a lot of empowerment to the chanting. So, I'm not qualified to speak about these things. It's just that I've given this service, so I'm speaking about the holy name. I'm, in no way an expert chanter, and I myself have to be extremely careful about not offending other devotees. So, I ask for your prayers and blessings. I'm just doing this as a service to you. And I think that's all the points that I wanted to mention. Any questions or comments? Okay.
Yes. To be careful and considerate and offenseless in relation to devotees, it takes exactly that, to be considerate and conscious. And sometimes my experience in temple life, it is a very chaotic experience. Many people coming, going, daily, weekly, and there's different settings all the time in terms of service, in terms of association. So you have some realization or understanding about how to improve one's own contribution in being conscious and careful in associating with devotees.
So one thing is for sure, when you live in a temple environment and you start to feel very agitated, is also an indication, that, perhaps either, you find a way to deepen your spiritual practice, so you can, or find your sacred space in that environment where you can find strength and you can calm your mind and you can find your kind of like Männerhöhle, where you withdraw yourself. But sometimes it's also a sign that, we might need to situate ourselves differently. So, because what also can happen is if we are very agitated in the temple environment for a longer time, and, we don't take the necessary steps to maybe, situate ourselves differently, then as a consequence, I've seen many times resentment, bitterness, people leaving, and you don't see them for a long time. So when we notice that, because temple life is also intense for sure. It's like that because, Narasimha Dev is here, so, it gives a particular mood. So sometimes, the Lord also gives us a certain experience so we can understand that we might just need a different situation, or we really, really are able to go deep on our spiritual surrender. However, often to go deep on our spiritual surrender, we sometimes need to situate ourselves differently. So this is like what I understand from this, especially in the temple environment when we're very agitated, deepen our spiritual practices, find a way to where we can withdraw ourselves from, all the stuff that is going on, where we just have our sacred space, and that can be the holy name also, Srimad Bhagavatam, where we can deepen. And otherwise we might need to understand if we can situate ourselves, we just need some more space, we just need some more independence. Just becomes too much for the mind, and like that. So that's what I can say about this topic. Hare Krishna. Yes?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Amazing lecture, first of all. Very important.
Thank you for your encouragement.
Two things. First of all, I don't know if you saw the water cup. It's on the table, so please be careful when you get up, because usually
This already happened once to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Not only you.
Thank you.
And just an addition, actually, it's not a question, but I also heard probably from another lecture from Maharaj that it said when you mention a bad quality, like when you technically criticize others, then what happens in the heart is that this quality manifests in you. And
it's mentioned in Mahabharata.
Okay. And vice versa also, when you glorify somebody, praise him for some good quality, then with time also it manifests in you.
Yeah, very nice point. Very beautiful point, yeah, very true. Yeah, and also for your question, Govinda Dev, I'm sure you want to say something about this topic? No? Okay. Yeah, this is a very good point. This is also like when we genuinely like glorify other Vaishnavas, although they will feel uncomfortable, but we genuinely share, really from our heart, appreciation for another person. Krishna is going to be extremely happy, in your heart, and it creates the right mindset. It's a very good point.
Yeah, and one more thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same, like what you mentioned, is the same as gratitude, because when you said that gratitude is the bridge, Maharaj also mentions that gratitude is actually more or less a material emotion,
But
It's sattvic, yeah, it's still
it is
material,
easy
yeah.
for us to practice because
Yeah.
we've done it a lot.
Yeah.
Normally, everybody has practiced this emotion a lot. So it is like kind of the bridge for
Yeah,
developing
exactly.
spiritual emotions.
Yeah, and we can endeavor for it. It's very practical. It's like really, we can really cultivate it. You wanted to?
Hello. Yes, I just wanted to ask at that point if you can say a few more sentences about this topic. Why is it working like this? That when you focus on some points, that these things manifest. What is behind?
Focus on what? When you focus on?
On bad qualities or on good qualities, that this develops. What is there behind?
What he just mentioned.
Yes.
This is in Mahabharata. So this is in Shastra. So there's, I don't know if anyone knows exactly in which conversation. Does anyone know? But there's a statement, even like, if you Google it, you might actually find this is a very famous statement. I don't know who mentions it, but it is in Mahabharata in the conversation that, it's a statement in, you. I totally forgot that we have Shastric expert here, another one.
Was talking to Maharaj Yudhishthira before he got coronated.
Yeah. So it's actually a statement in Shastra. Now of course you can, there's the statement, and now you can also, but also from a logical point of view, it does make sense when you criticize someone. Which mode is that in? It's not sattva guna, and I doubt it's raja guna. It's tama guna. It's you're in illusion, because you're unless you're a spiritual master and you're correcting someone, that's a different story. But if it's like really this tamasic way of criticizing, it manifests a mode of ignorance. It creates a tamasic samskara in your consciousness, right? So what you speak impacts your consciousness. So when you, for example, speak all day long about things you're grateful for, things you appreciate, even if you don't believe it, if you do it all day, it will impact your consciousness in a very powerful way. If you sit yourself in a room where you get constantly negative input from other people criticizing, this is another thing, hearing criticism. There's some very strong statements about this in Shastra. If you hear criticism, it's even, I think it's mentioned somewhere you should kill yourself if you hear criticism of another Vaishnava. Don't do this. This is, Where's this? Should cut your tongue. Yeah. Or drown. But there's also a statement that if someone definitely, like consult your spiritual master before following those instructions. But there's also a statement that if you can't do that, you should run away, and if you can't do that, you should, I think, drown yourself or something. There's some statement. Because when this input comes, like this is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada were so heavy. Don't hear impersonalism. Because input is coming in, and it triggers these negative samskaras in your consciousness. So this is also how karma works. Let's say, for example, you see a certain person, and suddenly, you feel some emotions because some karma just became activated. You perceive with your senses, you see, you hear, you touch, you smell, and that triggers a samskara in your consciousness, samskaras around your heart that are connected also to many previous lifetimes. So if you hear fault finding, it might activate some of the not so fortunate stuff you have done in the past. So this is also a way how you can look at it from a logical perspective. But otherwise it's of course a statement in Shastra, and that means it's a law, yeah? Okay.
The first thing you should actually try to do when you hear blasphemy is you try to help the person to understand that he should not do it. And if you cannot help him, that's the statement.
The statement, the statement.
That's nectar of devotion. And if you cannot do it, then you should kill
Right.
yourself. And if you cannot kill yourself, then you should leave the place.
Right. So and with this the best thing is actually to kind of like when you hear someone, like when you are with a devotee who's criticizing, like this is a practical tip, just try to change the topic. Oh, Prabhu, I heard last day you distributed 20 books, that's amazing. You know, you will notice many times the mind immediately, you know, switches and, you know, try to point out something positive. Because, you know, you don't really want to, you know, like, if you start preaching to them, you might agitate them even more, depending on who they are. You know, this is just, unless you are their authority, then, okay, go ahead. But otherwise, you know, often it's better just try to change the topic, and if they can't, then maybe you just go to the bathroom, and or you have to go to some service, yeah? Yeah, go ahead.
There was a small story with Jayananda Prabhu, when one devotee came to complain to him about someone else. He was a temple president, he just stood up and walked away.
Right, yeah, I know this story.
After like one or two sentences, oh, this devotee just stands up and walks.
Jayananda, you know him? This is a very famous devotee who's very famous for building the Jagannath Ratha Yatra wagons, you know, who built them for Prabhupada. Very famous devotee. We actually keep his picture on the wagon on the cart for Jagannath. Very special devotee. Yeah.
Krishna, where Bhaktivedanta Maharaj was saying that one time in Vrindavan, one devotee wanted to see one Babaji that was doing like astrology and things, and he was very reluctant, so he went with his devotee friend to him because he thought, I'm gonna protect him to not get strange informations. And then when he went to this Babaji in Varsana, this Babaji looked at him and he was telling him some things, and then he said, oh, I see this picture, who is your guru? And then he showed a picture of him, and he made a comment on the guru saying, oh, this person seems like he likes to take pictures, you know, he likes to be on cameras. And that was it, just from that statement that went into his mind, and he actually started committing offenses to his guru, and then he left the practice because it's just very delicate, you know, the bhakti kripa, that even a slight comment can really ruin really the whole practice. So
Yeah.
that was a very nice, not nice, but
Powerful point. But it also shows that this person actually hadn't really developed their spiritual connection to their spiritual master. You know, when people so easily, you know, drop something, it also indicates that there is still some misunderstanding in the connection between guru and disciple. But yeah, happens many times. Happens many times that devotees go somewhere and some side, or you see some Babaji, and then this Babaji is saying, oh, actually, you know, ISKCON got it all wrong, and then suddenly, oh yeah, you're right, and then it happens, unfortunately. So have to be careful with this for sure. Yeah, Bashar.
Try for Vito Prabhu for his point, like how to explain this more practically or scientifically. But I think the simple point is that when Krishna sees that we are criticizing somebody or just finding faults, then he sees this in our hearts and he's not pleased. And it's also said that it's like according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the root cause of all ahankaras is actually envy. So this is also a subtle manifestation of envy when we actually criticize others, because we are envying them for something we either can do or don't have, and so on. So since envy is the opposite of love, then Krishna cannot exist in a heart where there is it. I mean, it's not my statement, but it's said that Krishna does not exist in a heart where there is no love and where there is envy. So it just doesn't work. There will be no taste.
Yeah, this is very true. Envy is actually how, you know, there's, you know, in like, what means like alternative psychology, there's this huge thing called shadow work, you know, that when you are triggered by someone, it actually means that the same thing is within you, and you should, you know, this is actually even something Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I think someone mentioned that, you know, when you're very much disturbed by someone, you know, go in there. And this point with envy is actually, envy is really a foundation, because the last thing it said that you notice in your heart before you become fully pure is that you are, envy that you are not Krishna, that you don't have his position. It's mentioned, I heard it in a commentary to Madhurya Kanabini or a class, that before you become fully pure, that is the anartha that will really come up, that you actually realize that you want to be Krishna. Like it really comes in your face, and it's very true. Yeah, I mean, we all have to be. Once I was in a kirtan mela, and there was one sannyasi, and he was, there's usually here's the kirtan, and then there are like hundreds and hundreds of devotees, at least before Corona, all very, like tight. And then this sannyasi was a little distressed because he needed to walk out of the room. And then, this devotee asked him, Maharaj, you can just walk out, It's like, no, I'm so worried, because if I walk out, what if I step on a devotee or, push a devotee and I offend them? And he was like in distress because of this, Like, I don't think like that when I have to walk through a crowd of devotees. I try to be careful. But you see the consciousness, how, people are so sensitive. Advanced Vaishnavas about this point. This is, And it's in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, Kali enters exactly in this way. You will notice. Like even during this pandemic, if you observe carefully, I was speaking to a Vaishnava about this. He told me that Kali has entered also by dividing people, dividing different opinions. People start to fight, and people, this is Kali. It comes in and it divides people. So much happening on the planet right now, where societies are just split, and people start criticizing each other. And anyway, we already went on for a long time. Was there anything else someone wanted to mention and say? Good. Then have a wonderful Thursday evening, and Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki